Hello. There are bad birthday gifts. There are offensive birthday gifts. And then there's the kind of gift that destroys someone's entire life in a single moment. My wife got the third kind. She deserved it. I'm Nathan, 38, and up until a few months ago, I was living the typical suburban dream. Good job, nice house, beautiful wife, Madison, 35. We had been married for 10 years, together for 12, and to the outside world, we were perfect. The couple people envied. The ones who just got each other. Too bad it was all a lie. Looking back, the signs were there. The late nights at work, the sudden obsession with her phone, the unexplained business trips. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Madison worked in finance, and long hours were just part of the deal. But then, the little things started adding up: new lingerie that I never got to see, a gym membership that never seemed to reflect on her routine, and the casual name drop of a colleague, Brandon. Brandon. The name I didn't think twice about until I did. Curiosity turned into suspicion, and suspicion turned into cold, hard evidence. I wasn't looking for it. But when her phone lit up while she was in the shower, and I saw a message from him, something about last night being amazing, I knew. I just knew. I could have confronted her. I could have screamed, fought, demanded an explanation. But I wanted something better. Something that she wouldn't see coming. Something that wouldn't just end the marriage, but end her carefully curated reputation as the perfect wife. So I waited. And I planned. And when her birthday rolled around, I wrapped up the most thoughtful gift she'd ever receive. A beautifully bound scrapbook, titled Memories You Thought I'd Never Know About. Inside, screenshots of texts, hotel receipts, photos, every lie, every betrayal, every disgusting little secret she thought was safely hidden. And the best part? She wasn't the only one who got a copy. Patience is a virtue. That's what people say, right? But I've learned that patience is a weapon, one that, if used correctly, can deliver a blow so precise that it leaves your enemy standing, completely unaware they've already lost. That's what I wanted. Not a messy confrontation, not a dramatic screaming match, but a surgical strike that would dismantle everything Madison had built. So, I planned. Not hastily, not emotionally, I took my time. If she had the luxury of months to sneak around behind my back, I figured I could afford a few weeks to ensure my revenge was executed flawlessly. Every lie she had told, every excuse she had made, every little betrayal she thought was buried deep, I dug them all up. I became meticulous. I wasn't just collecting evidence, I was curating it. Every time she left for a business trip, I tracked where she really went. A gym session that didn't show on her Apple Health? I took note. The perfume she suddenly started wearing but never wore around me? Documented. When she texted, working late, I checked her credit card statements. Dinner for two? Cute. I needed her to feel the weight of what she had done, not just in an I got caught kind of way, but in a my entire world is crumbling, and I have no way to stop it kind of way. I needed her to experience the unraveling of her own deceit in real time. And so, I designed the gift. A scrapbook, beautiful, elegant, the kind that someone would expect to find filled with treasured memories. The cover was engraved in gold. Memories you thought I'd never know about. Every page, every section was a piece of her deception laid out like a grotesque piece of art. Chapter 1. The Texts. A carefully compiled selection of her conversations with Brandon. Flirty messages, secret rendezvous, their little inside jokes that weren't so secret anymore. Even the mundane, I miss you and wish I was in your arms instead, messages, stripped of context, became damning evidence. Chapter 2. The Proof. Screenshots of her GPS logs. Photos of her car parked in front of his apartment when she was supposedly out with the girls. Hotel receipts, my personal favorite. I highlighted the check-in times that perfectly aligned with her client dinners. Chapter 3. The Lies. Side-by-side comparisons of her texts to me versus her texts to him. Stuck in meetings, won't be home till late, followed by a time-stamped photo of her with Brandon at a rooftop bar. Chapter 4. The Fallout. A list of recipients. Because yes, she wasn't the only one getting a copy. That was the real stroke of genius. A gift too big to contain, too explosive to be ignored. I prepared multiple copies, each wrapped identically, each delivered to someone significant in her life. Her parents. The ones who always thought she was the perfect daughter, the perfect wife. They would get to see exactly what kind of person they had raised. Brandon's wife. Oh yes, he was married too. And I had no intention of letting her remain in the dark. Her boss. Because remember all those business trips? Turns out, her company had a strict no-office relationships policy. Our closest friends. The ones she had lied to repeatedly, manipulating them into covering for her. I planned the delivery perfectly. Her birthday was the perfect opportunity. She was expecting something big, something sentimental, something that would reaffirm my love for her. Instead, she was about to receive a public execution of her carefully crafted image. As she laughed with her guests, surrounded by family and friends, sipping expensive champagne, she had no idea that a small, unassuming package was making its way to her hands. The moment she unwrapped it, the moment she flipped through the first pages, her world would stop. And the best part? The other copies were arriving at the exact same time. Because revenge isn't just about revealing the truth. It's about timing. The morning of Madison's birthday was like something out of a Hallmark commercial. Sunshine poured through the curtains, the smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, and she floated around the house in one of those silk robes she only wore when she wanted to feel particularly admired. She was glowing, smiling, completely oblivious to the fact that today, her life was about to be split into before and after. I played my role well. The adoring husband. I kissed her on the cheek, complimented how stunning she looked, even handed her a small, beautifully wrapped box just to throw her off. Inside was a bracelet, simple, elegant. She beamed, kissed me, and I knew she thought she had everything under control. But the real gift? That was waiting for her at the birthday dinner. By evening, our home was packed with guests. Family, friends, co-workers, the people who had been there for every milestone of her life. The energy was high, laughter filled the room, and Madison loved every second of the attention. I watched her as she flitted from person to person, accepting compliments, playing the perfect host, the perfect wife. She thought tonight was about her. She had no idea. The waiters brought out the cake, 3 tiers of chocolate decadence, the kind of thing Instagram influencers drool over. Candles flickered as everyone sang, and Madison closed her eyes to make a wish. And that's when I saw it. That tiny moment, that fraction of a second where she looked smug. Like she had gotten away with it. Like she had built her perfect little world, full of secrets and lies, and no one, not her husband, not her family, not even fate itself, could touch her. Oh, sweetheart. You have no idea. As the applause faded and she went to cut the first slice, I cleared my throat. The room quieted instantly. I smiled at Madison, my heart pounding with anticipation. Before we get to the cake, I said, my voice light, casual, I have something special for you. A gift. Her eyes lit up. She loved surprises. Loved the idea of being celebrated. Of course, she had no idea that she wasn't the only one getting a surprise tonight. A waiter handed her a sleek, beautifully wrapped package. Identical to the ones already being delivered to her parents, to Brandon's wife, to her boss. She held it in her hands, the entire room watching, waiting, smiling. I could see her excitement as she untied the ribbon, slid her fingers under the crisp paper, lifted the cover of the scrapbook. Then she saw the title. Memories You Thought I'd Never Know About. Her hands froze. Her smile didn't just fade, it evaporated. I watched as her breathing changed, as her fingers hesitated to turn the first page. The room, still oblivious, buzzed around her. People laughing, talking, clinking glasses. But Madison? Madison was already unraveling. She flipped to the first page, and I saw it. The way her lips parted slightly, the way her body stiffened, the way the color drained from her face. The photos of her car outside Brandon's apartment. The screenshots of text she thought she deleted. The hotel receipts, dates highlighted in red, perfectly aligned with her business trips. The evidence of every single lie she had ever told me. The room had not caught on yet, but I could see it in her eyes, the sheer, absolute terror. She snapped the book shut. Her breathing was shallow, her pulse visibly pounding at her throat. She looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw fear. Not anger, not guilt, just pure, unfiltered fear. She knew I had planned this. That it was too late to explain, too late to run, too late to fix anything. She opened her mouth, probably to make some pathetic attempt to laugh it off, but before she could say a word, her phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again, and then the first whisper started. A voice from the other side of the room. Madison? Why did your mom just text me something about an affair? Then another. Wait, what the hell is this email? Madison? Her head snapped toward them, eyes wide. I watched her as her entire world collapsed in real time. Because at that exact moment, the other copies had arrived. Her mother, her father, Brandon's wife, her boss. All reading, all realizing. all watching her. I took a step closer, leaned in just enough for only her to hear me. "Happy birthday, Madison," I whispered. Then, I stepped back and let the disaster unfold. The room wasn't silent yet, but it was on the verge. A low hum of confusion rippled through the guests, some checking their phones, others exchanging nervous glances. Madison was still frozen, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the scrapbook as if sheer force alone could make its contents disappear. But the damage was already done. Her mother, the ever-dignified Linda Monroe, was the first to react. She gasped loudly, her fingers trembling as she held up her phone, scanning through the digital evidence dump I had so generously provided. Madison turned toward her, lips parting, but whatever excuse she was about to spit out died in her throat when her father, Richard, let out a single word. Unbelievable. Now, let's be clear. I knew exactly what I was doing. This wasn't just about exposing Madison's affair. That was easy. Too easy. No, I wanted to dismantle everything she had built. Not just her reputation as the perfect wife, but her carefully crafted image as the golden child, the respected colleague, the flawless socialite. And that's why I planned step 2. As the whispers turned to hushed conversations, as the weight of her lies settled in the room, I grabbed the remote control from my pocket and pressed play. The TV screen, once displaying a gentle slideshow of happy memories from our marriage, flickered, then switched to security footage. A hotel lobby. Time-stamped. Madison, dressed to the nines, laughing as she leaned into Brandon, his hand resting comfortably on the small of her back. The two of them checking in together. Another clip. A candlelit dinner. Not just any dinner, our anniversary weekend. The one she claimed she had to miss due to work obligations. Except, in this footage, she wasn't at a conference. She was in a 5-star restaurant, sipping wine across from Brandon, the same night I had eaten alone. And finally, the cherry on top. A voice memo. Her own words, taken from one of the many messages I had retrieved. "I don't even feel guilty anymore. I mean, Ethan is great, but he's just safe. Brandon is different. He makes me feel alive." A low murmur rippled through the crowd, morphing into gasps. Someone dropped a fork. Madison's best friend, Ashley, clapped a hand over her mouth, shaking her head. And Madison? She looked hollow. Not sad. Not apologetic. Just wrecked. But it wasn't over yet. I stepped forward, my tone even controlled. "You know, Madison, you always said I was predictable. Too stable. Too safe." I gestured toward the screen. "So I figured I'd do something unexpected. Thoughtful, even. I mean, if you're going to throw away our marriage for a cheap affair, you should at least get a proper send-off, right?" Her mouth opened, but before she could speak, her phone rang. Her boss. Perfect timing. See, here's the thing. I had done my research. And Madison's firm had a strict no-fraternization policy, particularly when it came to extramarital affairs between colleagues, because nothing says corporate liability like a scandalous workplace romance. And I had made sure HR got a front-row seat to the whole show. I leaned in slightly. "Might want to take that. Something tells me it's important." Her hands were shaking as she fumbled with her phone, staring at the screen in horror. But she didn't answer. She knew. And just like that, the perfect life she had built crumbled. Her parents disowned her, publicly, in real time, as they stormed out of the house, her mother sobbing into her father's chest. Her friends abandoned her, disgusted by how easily she had lied to them. Her boss was waiting for an explanation she couldn't give. And Brandon? Let's just say his wife had already filed for divorce, and I made sure she had everything she needed to take him for all he was worth. The room was collapsing around Madison. I exhaled slowly, then grabbed my jacket. "Anyway, I won't keep you from your birthday celebration." I turned to the guests. "Enjoy the cake, everyone. I hear it's delicious." Then I walked out. And Madison? She never saw me again. I didn't need to look back to know what was happening inside that house. I could hear it. The rising voices, the gasps, the hushed conversations that weren't so hushed anymore. Madison's world was imploding, piece by piece, and she was standing at the center, completely powerless. That was the beauty of it. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't have to. I let the truth do all the work for me. But my night? It wasn't over yet. I had spent months waiting for this moment, carefully crafting every little detail, ensuring that when Madison fell, she fell hard. And now that the bomb had gone off, I wanted to see just how deep the damage ran. So I didn't just walk away. I watched. From the car, parked a few houses down. From a position where I could still see the guests leaving in a rush, phones pressed to their ears, likely calling their spouses, their friends, maybe even each other, to dissect what had just happened. I saw Ashley, Madison's best friend, storm out, her face a mask of betrayal, shaking her head as she climbed into her car. She had always idolized Madison. That was over now. And then, the moment I was waiting for. Brandon. The man my wife had risked everything for. The passion she just couldn't live without. He walked out quickly, head low, jaw clenched, a man who had just realized he had made the worst mistake of his life. His phone rang, and I knew exactly who it was. His wife. The woman I had made sure got her own personal package of proof, the same one Madison had received. He hesitated, staring down at the screen, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his own destruction. And Madison? She came running after him. Even from a distance, I could see the desperation in her body language. She grabbed at his arm, speaking rapidly, her expression shifting between panic, anger, and pure, unfiltered fear. She had lost me, that much was clear. But Brandon was her last hope. Only he didn't look at her the way he once did. Gone was the cocky, self-assured man she had fallen for. Gone was the excitement of the forbidden. This wasn't some secret tryst anymore. It was real, ugly, permanent. He shoved her hand away, said something short, clipped, final, then got into his car and sped off, leaving her standing there in the driveway, completely alone. I smiled. The reality was finally setting in. She had lost everything, her marriage, her reputation, her job, and now the man she thought she had been throwing it all away for. But that wasn't the last surprise I had for her. Because, you see, Madison didn't just betray me. She underestimated me. And I wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My phone was blowing up, messages, missed calls, emails. Friends, family, even people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly felt the need to check in. I turned on the TV, and sure enough, there it was. The corporate scandal of the year. Madison's company was a prestigious firm, the kind that boasted about its family values and integrity. And in my carefully orchestrated revenge, I had made sure the board of directors received an anonymous tip, complete with all the evidence of her business trips with Brandon. HR had no choice but to act fast. The headlines were brutal. Top financial executive caught in extramarital affair with colleague, firm responds swiftly. High-powered cheating scandal rocks industry, ethics violations at play? It wasn't just gossip. It was career-ending. By noon, she was officially terminated. And as for Brandon? Well, he didn't survive the fallout either. His wife took him for everything. Filed for divorce the very next morning, froze their joint accounts, kicked him out of their home. He didn't just lose his job, he lost his entire life. I watched it all unfold with a coffee in hand, enjoying the poetic justice of it all. Madison tried calling me, repeatedly. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, long, tearful messages, begging for a chance to explain, to talk, to somehow fix things. I deleted every single one. Because there was nothing left to fix. That evening, I took one last drive past the house we used to share. The curtains were closed. The once bright and lively home looked empty, lifeless, cold. And then I saw her, sitting on the front steps, alone, her phone in her hands, staring down at the screen, probably reading the text from the friends who no longer wanted anything to do with her, from her parents who had made it clear they wanted nothing to do with her disgrace. This was her new reality. I could have stopped, could have rolled down the window, said something, anything. But why waste my breath? She had made her choices, and I had made mine. I drove off, without a single glance back. And I never thought about her again. Revenge is supposed to feel sweet, right? That's what they say. But here's the thing no one tells you about revenge. It's not about sweetness. It's about closure. Madison had lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her friends, her family, even the man she destroyed our marriage for. She was officially at rock bottom, and the best part? I didn't even have to lift a finger after the party. She did it all to herself. I could have stopped there, walked away, lived my life, let her wallow in her own mess. And for a while, that's exactly what I did. Until she tried to rewrite history. It started subtly. A few mutual friends reached out, saying that Madison had been telling people that what I did at the party was an overreaction, that I had always been too controlling, that she had been unhappy for years. Then came the real kicker, a social media post. A vague, self-pitying message about learning from mistakes and forgiving yourself even when others won't. The comments were flooded with supportive messages from people who didn't know the truth. The kind of people who always side with the one who cries the loudest. That's when I knew. I had one more move left to make. I never responded publicly, never engaged. That's what she wanted. Instead, I did something far more permanent. One night, I sat down and wrote the full story. Every detail, every betrayal, every piece of evidence, laid out with cold, emotionless precision. It wasn't angry. It wasn't vengeful. It was just the truth. Then, I sent it. Not to her. To her entire world. Her parents. Her former boss. Every friend who had ever questioned what happened. Even some of her extended family. The subject line? Since Madison wants to rewrite history, here's the real story. And then I walked away. For real this time. A week later, I heard through the grapevine that Madison had left town. Not for a vacation. For good. Her parents cut her off completely. Her former friends, once willing to maybe forgive, saw through her lies. She had no job, no money, no allies. She tried reaching out to Brandon. He laughed in her face. She became a ghost. Last I heard, she was working a basic retail job in another city, completely alone. No grand comeback. No redemption arc. Just a slow, humiliating fade into obscurity. And me? I moved on. I took back my life. I rebuilt, traveled, thrived. I found someone new, someone real. Someone who doesn't live in lies, who doesn't seek drama, who understands that love isn't about excitement at the cost of trust. I never spoke to Madison again. And I never regretted it. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't fire and fury. Sometimes, the best revenge is making sure they never recover. Bye-bye.